Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more month than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident. Good day and welcome to Give a Heck. On today's show, I welcome Daniel Gomez. Daniel is an award-winning keynote speaker, business coach, executive coach, corporate trainer, and Podcast of the Year recipient. Daniel speaks and coaches at events all over the world. His passion is to elevate businesses and entrepreneurs to achieve their true potential through their training and coaching programs. Daniel has empowered his clients to build epic success in their personal and professional lives. He is the international best-selling author of You Were Born to Fly, a book written to inspire and give people the high-performance habits and confidence needed to be the leaders of their own destiny. Daniel's high energy and ability to unlock the untapped potential in people has made him a highly sought out speaker and trainer for top organizations, including the U.S. Air Force. Daniel was honored with the best 2019, 2020, and 2021 awards for his training and confidence coaching. Daniel and his wife, Maria Gomez, believe in giving back and support women whose lives have been impacted by breast cancer through their 501c3 nonprofit, their Maria Strong Foundation. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Daniel. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and share with us some of your life journey.
Hey, Dwight, man. Thank you so much for having me here, brother. I'm excited to add value to Give a Heck and your community, man. It's going to be amazing. And I was hearing you read my bio and I was like, who's that guy? But no, man, I'm just, I love people, man. It's what it boils down to. So wherever I can add value, I'm honored to be here on your show, my friend.
Well, and that's exactly why you're here, because you're somebody that gives a heck. And that's why I reached out to you. Adding value to people's lives. God wants us to, we're only on this planet for a short time, and we better be serving others, because in order to serve ourselves, we need to serve others. We need to take care of God's children because we're one of them as well. And if we search and look for people such as yourself that uplift and motivate and give back, we're always going to get what we want too. So I'm so honored to have you on the show, Daniel. So Daniel, one of the things I talked a little bit before we started recording is that I focus on people's origin story. And part of that has to do with my frustration with the movie industry, with Marvel and Star Wars and stuff. They start in the middle and then they go back years later to the origin. And even podcasts that do the same thing. They just want to get to the meat and grit of what made Daniel successful, since college or university or whatever. Maybe you're a person that dropped out of high school or whatever. But what I really want to know about people is their origin and everything they can recollect from their earliest childhood memories. So can you do me a favor, and what key things from your childhood to adulthood that led you to where you're at currently?
That's a loaded question because there's so many stories along the way, man. And I think for me, really just my life really started for me when I remember being a kid, waiting at the bottom of an elevator. Didn't know where my mom was going. But I remember I'd walk into this hospital and I would sit right underneath the elevator. I could see the arrows. And I would just see people walk in and out, and I would just people watch over and over. And I just remember one day, finally, I was like, what's going on, Mom? I was probably like 7 or 8. And my mom had breast cancer. And I remember one time we went to this other doctor's office, Dwight, and we'd go up there. They didn't know where I was. All the floors looked the same. there was a little kid, so they had this glass elevator in the back of the hospital building office. And I was playing in the back there, jumping on pretty much close to the elevators. And just remember being just not having stability, because after my mom passed away from breast cancer, everything just kind of shifted. And I think that's what gave me the tenacity to deal with change in entrepreneurship. Because I remember my mom was sick. I remember she wasn't doing well. And I remember that just one day my aunt took me into her house. We went to my aunt's house and I was like, what's going on? They said, well, we need to tell you, we got to talk to you about mom. She's coming. And she wasn't coming, right? That's when they told me she passed away. So I think at the age of 9, 10 years old, just my life was filled with adversities. And I didn't really understand what was going on. I knew my mom was gone. But I think that gave me just the foundation to deal with change on a consistent basis, because really never had a home to stay. I was always kind of like we had a place to live, but we were always moving every year pretty much, Dwight. And I think that helps me deal with change. You know what I mean? I mean, you don't think about it, but I think that's kind of what helps me to deal with just the uncertainties that go on in business. And I think being 20 years in automotive and the sales fluctuating, I think it gives me the opportunity to stomach what other people couldn't stomach, because I didn't have that steady foundation of the Cleaver household.
Did you find though that because of, like you said, you moved a lot, and your life at 9, 10 years of age, you're full of some adversity, you moved a lot, and it helped you adapt? Has it also made it so that you don't necessarily enjoy the journey or where you're going to, that you're always driven to go?
It's funny you asked that, because one thing I will notice, dude, because of this, is I had trust issues. I had trust issues because we were always moving. And then I had trust issues because I had to learn how to, not that my sister wasn't there or my dad wasn't there, but I think I just learned how to fend for myself. I think a lot of times people deal with the loss of a loved one in different capacities, in different ways, and everybody grieves differently. And my dad was a great dad. I just think that I remember just things, deeper childhood, and I had a lot of anger. By the time I was 12 and 13, I just kind of, everybody wants to fit into something, a family or some sort. And thank God he was watching over me. I think if I look back at my life, God's always been watching over me. But I think it just really made me fend for myself and have trust issues, because people would say things to me as a young child, as a teenager, growing up. And it's like, then you get this high school girlfriend and you start saying these promises in the dark. And then those promises are broken too. And I think by the time I got to be 18, 19, it's just, I had trust issues with people, and I didn't trust anybody. And I really had to work through that, because in business, you have to trust people, right? I have to trust that if Dwight says we're going to be on the show at this time, well, he's going to meet me there. And when I come on Zoom, he's going to let me in. But things as little as that, small as that, sometimes I just didn't trust people. And it's just, which isn't good, because you take on too much in life where you think, well, if Dwight can't do it, then Daniel's the only one that can do it, right? And it's not a good approach, because you can't build a good team in business, or you can't build a good family, because you have to really learn how to trust people in life. And it's hard, because we've all been hurt. We've all been backstabbed. But I think that's one of the things that I carried from childhood, to be honest with you.
Well, if we have trust issues, I've been in that place in my life, and I still have moments in my life where I still have issues of trusting people and having that feeling of waiting for the other shoe to drop. That old saying is part of trust, right? I have to trust in the fact that what people say, like you mentioned, they're going to show up. They're going to do what they say. Their words aren't meaningless. They're actually a person, that their words are exactly going to happen. That action is going to happen. So I can appreciate what you're saying. And you talked about the fact, lots of anger at 12, 13, and, your dad and your sister were there for you. But if you're not feeling confident in the fact, especially with you moving so often and not having that structure, is hard. I never had that experience of moving a lot, but I do know, regardless of the adversities that I went through as a child, God was with me too. God was with me when I went through my divorce, when I became a single parent of 5 kids, and I didn't know how I was going to pay the bills the next day, or I was living a life of quiet desperation. The only thing I had were my thoughts, my prayers, and God, right? Really. And they're all tied together because God's always knowing and always listening for, signs of weakness, and we allowed outside influences to affect us, such as what you went through. Thank goodness you had God to keep you grounded, and look what you've accomplished, and look what you're continuing to accomplish. So I admire you. I appreciate you bringing that up.
No, it's just, I think if you go to my Clubhouse bio now, and literally when we went into full force business, when I came out as a professional speaker, we were doing okay, right? We were making money because I understand business. I ran multi-million-dollar automotive dealerships for many years, almost 2 decades. And it came to the point where it's like, I was in prayer one morning and God just said, dude, are you going to like pull over and let me drive? Or are you going to continue being busy doing nothing? Because I think so many times in business, we're busy being busy. There's nothing that's going on. There's no result, right? There's no ROI on the investment that you're doing. You're just, well, I'm posting on social media, or I'm in this group all day, and it's easy to get lost in nothing, in busyness, right? You go to Busyville, and then after you leave Busyville, you're in Burnoutville because no results are now. The next thing you know, you're burned out, and that's why most entrepreneurs and businesses don't make it past the first year. So I think for me, it really allowed me when this came to me in prayer, where I said, well, what do I need to do? He goes, well, you need to let me be the CEO. I said, well, can I be the president at least? And it's funny, but this is really the conversation I'm having with God. And he goes, I don't care what you are, but you're not going to lead this business if you want it to grow. And I'll tell you the moment, in all seriousness, when I put God as my CEO on Clubhouse, and you go to my LinkedIn bio, which is all professionals, it says President Daniel Gomez, because I'm not the CEO. And I think when I really allowed God, and not that I allowed him because he's not able, but when I stepped down and surrendered to that, man, we doubled in 2019 from 2018. We've been doubling every year. 2020, we doubled. 2021, we had a record-breaking year last year. And it's really because the wisdom that I get, the ideas that I get are from him, and they work. Think about it. I mean, I have my sign in the back, Sticker Shock Speaking Academy. We started that during COVID. We started it during COVID, and we had 20-something speakers come in from all over the country during COVID, and it was amazing. Best event we've ever had. And people would have probably told me, you're crazy, you're dumb. But when you listen to the prompting of what God puts in your heart, it works, because his ways are not our ways.
We have to be, I have this conversation quite often with people, and God, we're vessels for him. And we think about the old story of, the person that's, I'm not going to get it exactly right, but the person there's a flood coming, and God sends everybody, somebody in a boat, sends somebody in a helicopter, person drowns, and he goes up and says, where were you? Well, what else did you want from me? God doesn't directly interfere in our lives. God uses us as a vessel, as a tool to help out his children. And when we sacrifice or invest in others, our energy, and we are pure of heart, it comes back to us time and time again. I've seen it. Does it always work out? Do, people such as us not get taken advantage of? We do, but we just have to realize that God has the bigger picture in mind, and just give it up to him. And that's what I live my life as. I give it up to serving and helping others. And you've just talked about the fact of your business doubling year in and year out, and especially during a pandemic. And that's God speaking, right? For those listening, if you're looking for somebody to help uplift you, if you're a God-fearing person, Daniel's right there for you, and I'm there for you as well. If you're not God-fearing, because I have a lot of listeners that are atheists or they're agnostic, that's okay. just be a good person, serve others, and life will give you back what you need.
Well, a lot of times it's in the adversities. I love what you said. It's in the adversities that our characters build. And it doesn't matter if you're a believer or non-believer, the world's going to have to build your character. If you're growing in business, so many people, they just want the instant gratification. They want the instantaneous result. And it doesn't work that way. You have somebody that's been, we'll just say I brought up speaking. So somebody who's been speaking professionally for 5 years and you're coming into the industry less than a year. And then you start comparing yourself and you're like, well, why ain't I there? And man, Dwight's so much far ahead of me. Well, Dwight's put in the time and you haven't put in the time yet. How can you expect to be there? But you're going to have to go through the process of getting the maturity, getting everything that you need to be able to handle the success of where somebody that's 5 years, 10 years down the road. And we don't see that. We don't see that. So right away, we start comparing ourselves and we feel that we're inferior when no, it's just a process of maturity. How are you handling it when people, right, gossip about you just to say, well, if you're gossiping back, you're no better. If you're complaining, you're no better, right? Nothing kills our blessing. Nothing kills our success like complaining, because when you're complaining, really it's ingratitude. And if you can't be grateful for the little that you've been given, how can you be entrusted with more? I always talk about this with money, right? If you have $1 and you waste $1, how can you get a 10? If you got a 10, how can you be given 100? If you waste 100, how can you be given 1,000? Right? If you can't be trusted with the little bit that you have, how can you expect your business, your life to prosper and grow? If it's their basic success principles that many of us, we don't even pay attention to them, because I think we're kind of taught by society to really play the victim. And when you realize that regardless of what happens to you, there really is a lesson behind it. And when you approach a problem, not as a problem, but as an opportunity to find a solution, because in business, all we're doing is solving problems. And for me, the best way I found to solve a problem is like, okay, there's a problem. What does the Bible say about that?
Well, it's true though. People don't realize, and Daniel, I've had this conversation and I've talked about it with so many people. And I'm a firm believer in positive associations, not always meaning people, but what we ingest in regards to media, what we read, what we listen to. And people are sad and depressed or anxious. And what are they listening to? Sad, depressing, anxious stuff and reading. They're not putting positive things into their brains. And one of the main things that in my opinion, that people fail is that having gratitude first thing in the morning, waking up and saying, hey, God, thank you so much for allowing me to wake up today, to be, have the opportunity to be the best version of myself so I can serve others. What do you need from me today? Thank you for allowing me to breathe. Thank you for allowing me to have a house. Thank you for allowing me to have all the things that so many other people don't have. And you gave me these things so that I can be a happier, healthier person, so I can be happier and healthier for your children, to help them grow, so that they can turn around and give me energy back and help me grow. But it's that gratitude thing that people just don't get. And that's one of the easiest things for business people, is just be grateful what you have and put your dues in. Like you said, you can't expect it all. I can't expect to be where Daniel's at if I just started today. I have to be able to put in my dues and be grateful for all the little things. And when the bad things happen, I need to understand and pray more and say, hey, God, what was the lesson in there? Maybe I can't see it right away. Wake up the next day and God's answered my prayer. And then I go, wow, that's pretty profound. Thank goodness I have you, God.
Well, sometimes we don't want to see it, right? Sometimes we don't want to deal with the truth. It goes back to that movie with Tom Cruise, right? You can't handle the truth sometimes. And sometimes the truth is that we're selfish, we're spoiled. We take things for granted. I think it's like gaining weight. Nobody wants to gain weight, Dwight. Who wants to gain weight? But all of a sudden we put on those pants, we're like, oh crap, my pants don't fit me. And I think that's what happens in life. We take relationships for granted. We take people for granted, and not purposely. But I think really when in 2017, when my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer, it's like it just put me in a position where, regardless of the success that I've had in the automotive industry, we had so much success. I did, just trophies and awards and Corvettes and you name it, we've had it. But God put me in a position where my titles and my prominence couldn't help me. That nothing, it's like, dude, you're not listening. Like this you're going to need to lean on me. But I didn't realize how much I had taken everything God had given me for granted. Just my wife, my son, my daughter, my family. And it really made me reflect. And the funny thing is what you're talking about, right? Um, we don't realize how much junk we take in every day, unaware, right? Think about this: junk in, junk out, junk in, junk out. So going back to your analogy of listening to depressed stuff, maybe you're not listening to depressed stuff. Maybe you're one of those that listens to heavy metal and you're always angry. Well, maybe you need to stop listening to heavy metal. Or maybe you're watching that trash TV and maybe your life sucks because you're not, right? You're not turning off Jerry Springer when he comes in. And I think for me, it really helped me to reassess. And I'll tell you, when I resigned from what I was doing in the automotive industry to take care of my wife because she got depressed on me with breast cancer, when she had a double mastectomy, it really helped me say, like, dang, Daniel, you have a lot of junk inside of you. And really, what does junk look like? Well, you have shame that you carry from failures, guilt, regrets of maybe you could have been a better leader. And I think men don't deal with shame. Men don't deal with regret. Men don't deal with guilt. And then they don't forgive themselves. So they carry this with them. And then we wonder why a lot of men are just angry because they never go right. We deal with stuff surface level, but we never go deep into the roots.
No, absolutely. I know for me, I think the most humbling thing for me was to realize that, I'm raising my kids and to be a person that, like you said, goes below the surface and really analyzes things. And I had to start realizing that because my kids had gone through some trauma before I became their sole caregiver and went through counseling with them. When you're dealing with children, the parent has to be involved, and starting to learn about some of the things you're talking about, that I was just living in a surface level. I wasn't really going deep. I wasn't sharing my emotions. And by not being vulnerable to my girls and my son, I wasn't helping them. I thought I was being the brave parent, the dad that was sheltering and hiding from them our financial troubles, emotional crap that I was going on in court fighting for them, and all the different things that we think we're doing them a favor by sheltering them, when really, in essence, being vulnerable and having an honest and open conversation based on their age. Obviously, it was a different conversation from the 16-year-old than it was the 9-year-old, right? Stuff like that. Yeah. But we just need vulnerability. For men, it's tough. I have to agree. I continually work at it. And vulnerability is shared best through stories. And that's something I'm going to talk to you about in a few minutes too, because I know you believe in storytelling as a tool to really connect with people. And so many people don't know how to. You'll ask them a question and they'll give you a really short answer. How are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. What do you do? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it's not because they're bad people, but what does our education system teach us? What does our society teach us? They teach us to land, like one of my friends, Bruce, always says, land a plane. Well, sometimes landing the plane isn't good enough. You have to have that long journey and then you land the plane. It's not just about quick. It's same as recognizing what you were saying about creating business. It takes time. You have to put your time and energy in. So, I work with people, you work with people, and we just need to learn how to be genuine storytellers and be vulnerable, and realize being vulnerable can make it so that people lash out at us. But that's okay. Change your associations, and eventually those people lashing out at you will drop away, and God will surround you with like-minded warriors.
Yeah. Right? Well, I think just from what I've experienced, when you open your heart, it opens up the heart of the people around you.
Oh, yeah.
And I think so many times we're reluctant to open up our hearts, to really open up our hearts. And it's amazing when we're, whether in a coaching session or just having a conversation at dinner or a get together, right? A dinner party or something. And why am I saying this to you, Dan? And I don't even know. I was like, I don't know. I mean, I know it's the Holy Spirit moving in her heart, but it's like they kind of just word vomit. And I've never even told my my shrink this. And it's just because I'm trying to be as real as possible, as genuine. And when I open up my heart, I know that it's a gateway for people to be honest, because they can sense that. I mean, people know real, even though there's so much pain sometimes that we carry around in life, people can feel and know real. It's just because we're designed that way. We're designed, that's our way our our God-given DNA is created. We're designed with a void in our bodies, in our souls, in our being. We have a void that only God can fill. So when you hear somebody talk with truth, you're like, something different about this guy, or there's something different about this gal.
Well,
Because
we give off a different energy, and I can see that in you right now. For those listening, go jump on YouTube and watch this. Daniel's energy is electric. I can feel it, and we're on Zoom.
well, thank you, man.
You're welcome.
But it's just being real. I think open up your heart. I think that people try to always work on the mind, and I have a saying is when you open up your heart, Dwight, that opens up your mind and brings true transformation. Because if it's not a heart change, the mind change, it's just a temporary fix and it's gone. But when you open up your heart, that's where the true transformation comes in. Because then your heart, right out of they say, you want to know what a person's like, listen to what they say. Why? Because out of the heart flows the issues of life. What we speak is the issues that's in our heart, what we do, how we are, what we think. And by no means am I perfect, but I really try just to speak encouragement, life, love, and compassion to people. I'm not going to be a doormat by no means, but I think listen to somebody with how they present themselves and the verbiage that they use, and you can tell if someone's carrying guilt, or if they feel unworthy, or they're angry at the world, or just listen to the words. People tell you their whole story by the words they use.
Oh, and the body language too, though.
And we never pay attention to it.
Yeah. Well, I've worked now, Daniel, for I want to say it's going to be 30 years now. I was about 34. I'm, probably in my early 20s. I started working on personal development, and bottom line, I always want to be a student of human nature, and listening to people's tone, their tonality, watching their body language. Now, one thing, I don't know if you agree with this or not, over the pandemic, people wearing masks, it has forced me to watch their eyes and look at their eyes more than I ever have before, because I always looked at their smile and I watched their, their lower part of their face. But now all of a sudden, I can't believe how much I can see in somebody's eyes. You can see hurt. You can see if they're being they're misinforming you or lying, whatever you want to call, right? But I don't know if you've noticed that, but we talk about people's how they present themselves and the stories they tell, but I can tell a fake person a mile away from their body language.
Well, the thing is, we don't realize it, but your souls are your eyes are your gateway to your soul. Really look into a person's pupils and think about this, right? If you ever, I remember sitting one time we're at the mall and just looking across, and you see this woman there, and you can just see not her, but you look into her eyes and you can see the pain and that she's going through something. Because your eyes, your pupils are the gateway to your soul, to your heart. And when you really pay attention, you can see what's going on inside of them. And it's just people, you can't hide that, because it's you coming out. And it's just something that you learn to, it's a skill, I guess you just learn to build or pay, right? You just become more attentive to it, more aware of it. But you're right. And I talk about this sometimes in my corporate trainings. It's like, take time to really look at it, right? Look in your own eyes. I mean, I had this gentleman, one of my clients, and I had him look in the mirror. I mean, get close to the mirror like this, and I go, look into your own eyes. And I want you to tell yourself you love yourself every morning. But you need to look into your pupils. And he said for the first 2 or 3 times that he tried to do it, he couldn't do it. And finally, one time he did it, like the fourth or fifth time, he just started crying because he never told himself he loved himself. And he just had so much pain inside that it was never resolved or dealt with. And I think that learn to really listen, like you're saying, the tonality, their gestures, their eyes, because there's a lot of hurting people out there. And it's just one of those things that people try to say, well, how you doing? I'm okay. And really, they're not okay.
No, they're not.
And I think that's one thing that if you see somebody that is excessively drinking, overeating, or shopping all the time, there's issues going on. There's something that they're trying to fulfill or deal with. And that was me, because I used to always, I remember maybe 15 years ago, I would like to have a beer. And then next thing you know, it's like having a beer every Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And it's like, no, I'm like, you need to deal with the issues. And I think I honestly, I didn't think I had so much junk inside of me, Dwight. I mean, I think I've cried more these 4 years since 2017. Like, man, it's just like, God, are you done?
Well, crying
Right?
though is
Are you done?
we're so judged when we cry though too, and really it's a pressure relief for our bodies.
Yeah.
It's a way for our emotions to get out. And then on top of all that, then it's hopefully you have good associations or a connection to something that can ground you and help you through that pain. As you mentioned, some people are overeating, some people are drinking too much, and their friends and family don't necessarily recognize it because they're associating with the same type of things.
Yeah.
They've never had an opportunity to associate above that. And I'm not cutting down people's families or friends, but if you truly want to elevate and change, you need to be, for me, and I have to have my connection to God and my core values. People talk about them all the time. I don't know what yours are, but my three main core values are faith, family, and work, in that order. My faith with God, like my belief and my connection to God, is so important. If I don't have that, how can I possibly show up for my family? And most importantly, how can I be a consistent person in my career and what I do for others? So I live that life of faith, family, work, and it's done me well. Has it always helped me? No, because I need to get out of my own way sometimes.
I think we all do.
Right.
I think no matter what, I think people have the myth of that there's an arrival point, and there's never an arrival point. Either we stop growing on our own, and then sometimes God and the world will have a way of nudging us forward through a problem, through a situation. And that's what happened to me with my wife getting diagnosed with breast cancer. It just really, it made me go deeper. It made me deal with stuff that I hadn't dealt with in a long time. And do I want my wife to go to breast cancer? No, but it was a blessing in disguise. I mean, the journey, I mean, it sucked. It was hard many, many times, crying, but looking what the healing that took place in my wife and how much she values herself now, and the healing in our marriage and our relationship with our kids, and just the conversations that we have. It's like a lot of good things come out of some of these situations. And the thing is, so many people become bitter, they become angry, and they become resentful. And my brother was a good example of that. He ended up killing himself, I say, because he never got over our mom passing away. And he
Wow.
was just always angry at the world. And the thing is, this is when you I call it a destructive mindset. When you live life in a destructive mindset, where you continuously live in unforgiveness and anger, and you're one of those men or women that goes from 0 to 60, and you get irate, right? You lose your temper right away, and you harbor bitterness and resentment and envy. Well, you're only killing yourself inside out, right? You're only putting yourself in a higher level of stress, which it brings down your immune system. And it's like really trying to learn and being intentional on living on the creative side, full of love and joy and compassion. And like you said, waking up in the mornings and being grateful and thankful, living in that gratitude. But most people, they don't even realize that they're living in that bitterness and that resentfulness and that hate. And it's not going to serve you. It's going to cost you years. And I say that because I saw my brother die at a young age because he just never got over. He would always tell me, well, how can you be so happy? Don't you miss mom? I'm like, well, yeah, but I'm not going to stop living. But
Yeah,
some people
and
get
you can't even tell them though that, what would mom want from you? I have people say that, what would this person want if they were still living? Right? Sometimes their people are too far gone, like your brother, that might not even have been something that would shock him. Mom wouldn't want this for you. Like I've heard this from other people that lose people that are close to them in their lives, especially a parent, which is tough. I don't know how old were you when your mom passed away?
I was 9. I was 9 or 10.
Sorry, I missed
And my
that.
brother, I mean, my brother was 18. So my brother harbored this, no joke, for probably about, I think he was 40, he was 47. So he harbored this for like almost 30 years.
Wow.
He just never, like, never was a happy person because he never got over that. And you got to forgive. You got to release those emotions. You got to let go of the past. You got to let go of those regrets. The longer you harbor them, the longer you deal with them, not only is your life not going to do it, but many businesses, they don't do good because of that, right? If you think about it, I'm the business, you're the business. If you're a solopreneur, entrepreneur, if you're a business with 10 or less people, that's even more impactful because you're the problem. You just don't see it. You don't see the best in your employees because you don't see the best in yourself, because you're seeing things from a perspective of bitterness, of anger, and it's costing you revenue because you're not doing and seeing clearly. You don't have that clarity that you need. So I encourage your listeners that if you're listening to this right now, we're not talking about it by accident. Obviously, there's a reason for your audience to hear this. Dwight, it's like, give a heck for yourself and release all that garbage. Take the trash out. In 2022, it's right. It's January, February. You have to throw out that garbage. Whatever garbage is left over from 2021, throw it away. Take that trash out. Take it out. Take that garbage out. The unforgiveness, the resentment, the regrets, the failures that you've had. Just because you failed, it doesn't make you a failure. Just because you made mistakes, it doesn't make you a mistake. You're not damaged goods, and you got to stop seeing yourself as damaged goods, because we've all been there. I've screwed up. I've made many, many mistakes, but the thing is, get up, wipe the dust off, because God's saying, dude, I'm waiting for you. Like, you're like, well, I'm waiting for God. No, like, God's waiting for you to get up and stop feeling sorry for yourself.
And be open to and be receptive to the fact that, God is sending people to you, as we talked about with the person that ends up drowning. We don't have to drown. Just by you listening to this or watching, this conversation between Daniel and myself, you should know that you're worthy. Don't ever let anybody tell you you're not. And as Daniel mentioned, throw that garbage out. We understand it's not going to happen overnight. It's the same as business. You got to pick yourself up. You got to dust yourself off and change your associations right now. If you're the type of person that's associating with people that, all you do is go out to a buffet and eat till you're ready to throw up, or you're going out and getting drunk from, Friday to Monday, change your associations. Change your associations to people that are going to uplift you. Is it going to be painful? When your mindset's been corrupted or it's always been negative, it isn't going to be easy, brother and sister. But Daniel and I are here for you. You just have to reach out. There's many more great podcasts out there, such as Daniel's, myself, many other people that will always give you an uplifting feeling, and not, listening to true crime story podcasts. No offense to the true crime story podcasts, but the people that listen to them are living in negativity. Yeah. That's just me. Sorry if that offends and I lose some listeners, but
what's the truth? It's like watching trash TV. I mean, like my wife, she has this thing. She likes to watch Family Feud at night, and we'll watch an episode or two, and it's fun. We laugh. It's Steve Harvey's funny. But it's like, if you watch that every day, all day, it's like, there's no value in that. And you got to just kind of find the limits. And it goes back to what we focus on expands in our life. So if you're focusing on crime, if you're focusing on negativity, you're going to attract more negativity. And I think people forget that, right? I think they should probably write that down. What you focus on expands. What you focus on, you attract more of. So if things ain't going on right in your life, it's what are you not focusing on that you should be focusing on? If you're watching trash TV, if you're listening to a podcast that doesn't add value to you, if you're putting yourself in an environment where it's negativity and it's just not a positive environment, and you find yourself going out and you're at this club or you're drinking every single Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, like Dwight said, you got to stop tolerating that crap.
Yeah. And it's harsh, right? But you know what? I give a heck. And I'm here to be, somewhat disruptive in your mindset. And for some of you, it might be a major disruption in your mindset. And you might not be too happy with me right now, or you might not be happy with Daniel. But guess what? That unhappiness is telling you that there's things that you can work on and that you need to change. So don't walk away or run away or drive away from this podcast embrace it. Embrace the fact that you're worthy and that there's other people out there that have gone through struggle and strife like Daniel and myself, and we continue to elevate and uplift ourselves as well as bring along other people for the ride. And guess what? There's people that are continuing to bring me along on their ride of life, right? In order to continually elevate, as Daniel mentioned, we work on ourselves the rest of our lives. I will till the day I take my last breath. So one of the things I wanted to, I got a couple of things I want to get into here before we hit the end of the show. And you touched a little bit on it though. You're an award-winning keynote speaker. What would be the one thing that you worked on most to become the impactful speaker you are today? And why would that thing be so vital?
I think for me, it was just to have fun. And when you allow yourself to have fun and you realize that the audience is the star of the show, that you're not there to perform, you're there to add value to the audience. And one of the things that I really started doing that really got me just results, right? Engagement from the audience is I got off stage. I started getting off stage and talking one-on-one with Dwight, with people in the front row and the back. And I think so many people in the middle and the back are forgotten at conferences that I always ask for a lapel or a wireless mic. And it's amazing when you get off stage and you make that connection. I think I started selling more books and more programs when I started doing that because it makes people feel important. So I think it's really understanding that when you're speaking live in a conference, get yourself off the stage because it's not about Daniel. I'm not the star. The audience is the star of the show. And when you really practice that, people love it. They remember that.
Oh, because everybody wants to feel connected. And that's one of the things that bothers me. I love how you brought that up. Because I've been speaking in a captive audience for the 19 years I've had my business in finance. And people would arrive to these events, not necessarily coming to see me because I'm one of the keynote speakers speaking on the strategy, this product. And when I shifted my business to being a speaker and talking about Give a Heck and my message of wanting to help people get off the hamster wheel of life, I had to realize, like you said, you're there for the audience and you're not running like most speakers back to the green room and then getting on your in your cab and driving to get into the airport, jumping on your private plane. If that's, the thing that you have, I want to be connected. I want to communicate with those people. I want to hear their stories. I want to elevate and uplift my life. And if I don't go into the audience and I don't go talk to people, how am I ever going to have that happen? How are they going to connect to me? And as you mentioned, how are they going to want to, buy my book, or how are they going to want to listen to my podcast, or how are they going to want to invite me to speak at their own event? Maybe there's somebody there that, they have their own events. If they don't get to know the real, genuine, authentic Dwight, and vulnerability starts at not being scared and walking off that stage, as you mentioned. I love that. And that's something I'm continually practicing, because why do people do that though? They don't want to get criticized. So they live in fear. And I talked about that earlier on a roundtable show I was on today earlier. And 3 of the people out in their roundtable said, we're going to use that. And it's something as simple as this, listeners. You've heard some of you, if you're new, you haven't heard me talk about this. Fear is an acronym. It means face everything and rise. So every time you feel even a little iota of fear, and I've programmed my brain, I've got that habit now, I automatically think, I'm scared. No, I'm not. Face everything and rise. Head on into it, right? Lean into what's bothering you. And if that fear is communication, right? And on a speaker level like Daniel and myself, we just have to face it and realize that somebody might not be happy that we talked to. They might criticize what we said. That's their opinion. Listen to them, acknowledge them, right? Be respectful, move on. Because the person standing beside them that listens to you deal with it in a very respectful, God-fearing way is going to have respect for you and might never, ever say anything to you, but they'll connect to you through your podcast. And maybe they'll go to your website. Maybe they'll reach out to you. Maybe if you have a book, they'll buy your book. But just be genuine, authentic, decent human beings that don't let fear control you.
Love it, man. Love it. Good stuff.
So, can you tell the listeners and I a story of an event in your career that you spoke at that not only changed others' lives, however, yours as well?
Well, I would say it was a big engagement I had in Austin, Texas. I showed up. It was cold and waited for the doors to open up in the venue, and then we get there, and it's you hear about it, just kind of stories. But when it happens to you, when the AV equipment doesn't work, they had this little kind of camera setup thing, and all of a sudden, just bloop, it flipped over, and they were trying to fix it. The AV people there, and it just wasn't working. And I was like, man. And I was still kind of new to that presentation, but I think it really helped me to become a better, right? So many, I've seen so many prima donna speakers that they use that as an excuse to like, well, it wasn't my fault. It was just the venue wasn't good. No, if you're a good speaker, you're going to adapt. You're going to have impromptu. And it really helped me to raise my level of speaking. And it just really, I use that scenario because they tried for like 5 minutes, which seemed like an hour, right? When you're in the midst of it, it seemed like an hour. And you know what? Don't worry about it. I got it. We can talk about this. And it was beautiful because I talked about how when things don't go right, like what do you do when your instinctive behaviors come out? Do you react in a childish way, or are you that leader that's going to really lead off the grid? Because things are gonna happen. Things are gonna happen like they happen right now. So I really use that, and I just turned it into so many amazing teaching points. And it really showed me that when you speak from your heart, that connects with the audience. And I think that's one of the speaking engagements that I sold the most books, because they saw the real me, right? They saw the authentic me come out. And it's like, you saw me under pressure. I mean, I didn't yell, I didn't get mad, I didn't play the victim. I just said, well, how can this is going to make me a better this is going to make me a better speaker, right? I said, if you were really wondering what I was going to speak about, now I am too, because my my slides are gone. And that's why I'm not really a slide person. I'll kind of use PowerPoint or a slide as a point of reference, but I think it was a good leadership team building. Just the presentation was amazing because we used that situation that came in it. It just showed me that people always say, well, what you hear this when you're a speaker, well, what 5 things can you speak on, or what can you speak on in a whim? I'm like, as a great speaker, you should be able to speak on 4 or 5 topics within 30 minutes to an hour and without no practice, because you need to embody it. And that's where many speakers fail, is they want to be a speaker and they niche down so much and they don't have the topic to speak on. And it's like people say, Daniel, how do you always get booked so much? Because, well, I speak on leadership, team building, sales. I can speak on money. I can speak on mindset. I can speak on team building, and just it's personality indicators. But it's just like, it's in you. You become it. You embody it. You don't need a slide. The slide is for the people, that way they remember it. But for you, if you're depending upon that slide, and you're not taking your speaking skills to the next level. And that's kind of what we go over and we teach you at Sticker Shock Speaking Academy, is to really help you not just speak, but really develop a speaker mindset where you're really becoming that professional speaker and building a speaking business. And I think so many aspiring speakers don't see it that way.
I like how you put that, though, that, you get up to speak and they're just going to speak, and they're forgetting that vulnerability is the number one thing. And, one of your biggest engagements for selling of your books, because you were genuine. How many people stand up on the stage and they're talking, relying on the AV equipment to get their message across, when really, if they step down off the stage and they go through the crowd, or they just stand in front of their first row and they just talk with your body. There's nothing wrong with talking with your body, with using your body and your body language in a positive way. And if you exude that emotion, people are going to connect more so than the person that's standing up on stage speaking for their 10, 12, 15 half hour and then leaving, and people feeling empty because they really never seen the true genuine you. So what an amazing story. I love that.
Thank you, my brother.
Yeah, that's great. So Daniel, you're a business coach, executive coach, and corporate trainer. Can you tell us why this is so important in today's day and age for people or groups to have a mentor to achieve success and to hold on to it?
Well, the thing is, the reality is, I have blind spots. You have blind spots. We all have blind spots. Everybody has blind spots, and everybody we don't know something, right? You don't know what you don't know. We've heard that saying before. We don't know what we don't know. And when you have a coach, like a good example is right now, one of my clients is a very successful businessman, multimillionaire. And his wife was like, why'd you hire Daniel? Like, you're like, right. You're a really successful business owner. And he goes, well, I want to take myself into business to another level. And he just told me this yesterday. So it's funny. It's fresh on my mind. And, just we've gone through probably like about 3 or 4 sessions. And then yesterday he goes, you know what my wife said? I said, what? Because she goes, I'm glad you hired Daniel. So I say that because it doesn't matter what level of success you're at. There's always another level. There's always a newer version that's dying to come out. And so many times we get complacent in our own success that we don't even see it. We don't see it. That it takes an outside perspective to really challenge you. And I'll tell you, there's sometimes that it depends on who the client is, but sometimes, you got to get in their face a little bit more, be more affirmative and hold them more accountable. But it's just, I think at the end of the day, now I have more confidence when I deal with these executives and these successful business owners that have, that do over 7 figures, because at the end of the day, they're just human beings and they don't see things the way we don't see things sometimes too, or somebody just starting off see things. And we all have blind spots and we all need that accountability. And sometimes we just need all that encouragement. So that's what I love about it, is just really helping people see that there's another level inside of them.
And that's true. There is so much more that we don't realize about ourselves that we can achieve.
Yeah. We all, put it this way, we all have deep reservoirs that we don't tap into because we never push ourselves to those limits, because we see everything as a problem instead of trying to find a solution for it. And as soon as you go into that negative, poor-minded mindset, right? That poor-minded financial inner economy inside of us, that we all have a financial inner economy. It's either poor-minded or it's one of those of abundance, of prosperous, a millionaire's financial inner economy. And that's how you make that trumps that financial inner economy trumps your skill set and your knowledge. And most people, we default back to that because that's how embedded it is in us, that problem happens and we blow up. And why is this happening right now? How come I have a flat tire? And why did this break? And when you respond that way, you just attract more of that garbage to us.
Exactly. I completely agree. So, Daniel, you're an international best-selling author of You Were Born to Fly, a book written to inspire and give people high-performance habits and confidence needed to be leaders of their own destiny. And for those watching, Daniel's got it on the screen. Amazing. So what would be a high-performance habit that someone right now can aspire to achieve? And why is it important for their future growth and stability?
Well, I think so many times, right? And in chapter 2, I talk about speaking life. And it's the rule of 151. If you're a leader and you're a business owner, the rule of 151 says, as defined by Dr. Marshall Hoke, is that it takes a person 151 times at least to start believing something if they've never heard it before. And so many times as leaders, we come in and we have these new employees, these new teammates, and they've never had anybody believe in them. All of a sudden, you say something to them, but they don't believe you. And then we wonder why. Right? So the rule of 151 says this: the first 50, people don't even acknowledge it. The second 50, people they're barely starting to hear it and maybe understand it. But it's not until the 151st time that somebody's heard something that they start to say, maybe this might be true, and start believing in it. And if you think about that in business, we only have about 26 working days to say in the calendar, 25 to 26, depending on what industry you're in. You give somebody a 90-day probation, 3 months. So within 90 days, just to say every day you told them, I believe in you, Dwight. I believe in you, Dwight, every morning. It's only 90 times. You still got another 61 more times that you got to tell them before you even hit 151. So it's really having that understanding and being intentional that there really is people that are capable around you. It's just it's your responsibility as a business owner, as a leader, to extract that greatness, that success, that excellence out of them. And when you really understand the rule 151, it helps you to be more successful, because you would probably give up on somebody a lot sooner instead of really helping them work through it.
I love that perspective. 90 days is only 90 times. And I'm going to add to that perspective in regards to people. Think about somebody you love in your life and how many times you see them in a year. And ask yourself, how many more years are you going to live? How many more times are you going to see that person? So if you believe in somebody in your life and you only see them 12 times a year, and you only say to them, you're worthy 12 times to them, and you base it on that 151 times, you got your work cut out for you. So if you really care about somebody, maybe pick up the pace. And it's not always about face-to-face contact. Maybe it's that message, that DM, that text, that simple voice message that you send. Such a powerful thing that you just talked about. But I think about that. People say to me, well, how old are your parents? How many times do you see them a year? Oh, so you might only see them 10 more times. And I was just like, what? They're right. I may only see that person 10 more times. And what happens if that tomorrow they pass away tomorrow and I don't have that 10 more times? Right? So I always challenge myself to be present in every single moment. And if I'm going to help somebody, as you're mentioning, I just realized that there's people that I'm telling in life that they need to pick up the pace and, that they can achieve great things, but I need to pick up the pace of how I'm saying that to them. I need to do it daily, because 90 days is only 90 times. I'm not at that 151. So I appreciate that. I hope listeners, you appreciate that. Rewind that and listen to that again. We need to be reminded constantly, and also learn how to remind ourselves and tell ourselves that we're worthy. I know every day I have to tell myself I'm worthy, right? I can do great things through God's blessings, or the fact that I'm alive again. So I really appreciate that. That was very profound.
Yeah, no, we give up so much too soon sometimes on people, and sometimes just people just need to be reminded that they are worthy and deserving. Right? They are worthy and deserving of God's best. So think about the rule of 151. And when you go my book at Amazon, it's in chapter 2, Speak Life, right? And you got to speak life over yourself, over your people that you serve, over your family. And there's great principles in here to help you succeed in every aspect of life.
Right on. I so appreciate that. So Daniel, having lost both of your parents to cancer and watching your wife battle breast cancer, I can understand why you developed a nonprofit to help out those in need. How is this part of your life journey progressing, and where do you see the foundation fitting in regards to cancer research and hopefully one day a cure?
Well, right. So I think there's a lot of politics around that. It kind of upsets me a little bit, and not in upsets in a bad way, but just there's already
gets you fired up.
There's already a cure out there. They just don't want to expose it because
I know. I was just waiting for you to say that.
It's a $10 billion. They raise over $10 billion in October with all the charities and football and NFL. And it's just, there's a cure out there. It goes back to, I remember studying and reading an article that Firestone and Goodyear bought out the gentleman, right? They paid him so many millions of dollars back in the day to shut up when he invented the tire that would never wear out. So what did they do? It was invented. They bought him out. They said, here, get this money, go away, never bring up this tire again, because they would put Goodyear and Firestone and all the other tire manufacturers out of business. And the sad reality is that there's already a cure for breast cancer and probably a lot of other cancers, but they just don't let it out because the pharmaceutical companies, and it is what it is. They rather treat the symptom instead of go to the root of it. So at the Mighty Strong Foundation, I love it because we just give women hope. And it's really about helping them and impacting them with, I think when we went through our journey that, most organizations waited a full 90 days before they helped you. 90 days, you already lost your house. You already didn't pay the light bill. You already on repo status in your car. So where we try to come in is we help people right away. We give them gas money, groceries. We help them pay for radiation, for chemotherapy. And it's an amazing feeling.
It's amazing to hear about it though. But, I've realized for years, I've lost so many people to cancer. It's just, bottom line, cancer it's the number one killer of people, right? In my industry, I do financial planning, but I also do insurance, and I deal with a lot of underwriters and stuff. And it is, even the underwriters, when I've had conversations, will say, we know there's a cure. We're so sick of the corporations being so greedy that they would sooner see people suffer so they can line their pockets than to actually cure something. And, you mentioned, I never ever heard that story about the tires, but that doesn't surprise me.
True story. It's a true story.
Yeah. Oh, and I believe you. It's sad though, Daniel. Like, honestly, one more person that has to pass away, or, like you said, nobody gets help for 90 days. My granddaughter passed away in 2017, and one of the hardest years of my life. And, by the time they were able to pull their heads out of their butts and give her a diagnosis, it had been a couple of years. She finally got on a bone marrow donation list, and Make-A-Wish Foundation wouldn't even acknowledge that she was ill until she had a diagnosis. So they wouldn't send her on her wish, which was to go to Disneyland. All this stuff, when they finally acknowledged it, right, she was gone 60 some days later. Too little, too late, because people have their heads up their butt and they don't realize that people can't wait 90 days. People can't wait 6 months. It's right there in front of you. They're ill. They're suffering. Help them out. Yeah. So I've lived that real time. And how many agencies wouldn't help my daughter, and how it was just, no support. And then when they finally do make a decision, it's too little, too late, right? It was too little, too late for her. So I appreciate you sharing that. Daniel, if you had to give our listeners one last closing message, what would you tell them in regards to giving a heck and never giving up?
Well, I think they need to give a heck about themselves. I think so many people undervalue who they are. They undervalue themselves, and they don't forgive themselves. And I think today is a day you need to forgive yourself. Today is a day to release the regrets that we're talking about, to release the shame, to release the guilt, to release all those failures, to release all those negativities that you're holding on to, and know that it's a new day in front of you. But you have to give a heck about yourself and forgive yourself. And when you forgive yourself, your perspective is going to shift. And you're going to realize that you are worthy and deserving of that promotion. You are worthy and deserving of God's best. There's nothing that you can do in life that's going to separate you from God. Nothing. And if you think about this, if God can turn stinky old mold and turn it into penicillin, think about that, stinky old mold, and turn it into penicillin, which is good for your body, what can he not do in your life if you give him a space and a place to move and operate, and you welcome him into your heart? And I say this because when I did that decision, when I made that decision for myself, my life changed. The joy came back. The anger was gone. The resentment was gone. And the hardest person to forgive sometimes is ourselves, because I had to forgive myself a couple of times just to move forward. And it's one of the best things you can do for you. So that's my word of encouragement as I end this amazing time with Dwight. You just got to forgive yourself. And actually in my book, Dwight, there's a chapter on forgiveness. And so go to Amazon right now, get the book, You Were Born to Fly. And I love to give your audience a complimentary discovery session. Go to www.danielgomezglobal.com. Send me a message through our contact page. And I'd love to give them a complimentary 45-minute discovery session.
Right on. I appreciate that. I was just about to ask you how the listeners could reach out to you. And, there is the odd time, listeners or anybody watching, some people are nervous to reach out to and can be intimidated. If you feel comfortable with me and you would like a connection to Daniel, please reach out to me. I will make sure to connect you, because, if we don't help one another, lift each other up, we're never going to get ahead in this world, and evil is always going to win. And I'm here to tell you, goodness is never going to tolerate that. And we're going to fight until our last dying breath to help as many of you achieve the greatness that we know is inside of you. So I appreciate your time again, Daniel, for coming on and, being on Give a Heck and sharing your experiences so that others too can learn it is never too late to give a heck. Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.